James Gunn's new DCU is now underway with Supergirl. Does the new Supergirl film prove that the DCU doesn't need to rely completely on Superman? Let's find out. So this is one of the most important DCU films because it needs to prove to us, the audience, that Supergirl is worth being a big addition to the DCU. And it needs to prove that Supergirl can stand on her own without other heroes to help her. And I will admit, there are moments in this film where it does accomplish that task. But there are also some very frustrating decisions that hold this film back from being great. And by the end of this review, I will let you know whether this is a win for DC or whether it's a step back. So let's start with what worked here. The biggest surprise for me here was Millie's performance as Supergirl. Her cameo in Superman was well done, but I wasn't sure whether or not she was going to fit this character well. This film confirms that she is a good addition to the DCU as Supergirl. She completely understands the character of Kara. There's confidence, anger, vulnerability, and compassion underneath a pretty rough surface. And she makes this character feel distinct from Superman in the sense that she's not afraid to get her hands bloody. Whenever she's allowed to simply exist as Kara without other characters butting in, this film tends to work well. Another standout here is Jason Momoa as Lobo. It almost feels like he's playing himself in this film, which makes it even better because you can tell he's having a great time. Every time Lobo appears here, the energy of the movie skyrockets, and I wanted to keep engaged with the film. And honestly, this film needs way more of that energy because a lot of the runtime feels a little flat. I also need to talk about Krypto. Krypto the dog is absolutely adorable, and this film just continues that. And more importantly to me, the film makes it feel like he's not just a cute dog, he's actually involved in the storyline in a very, very important way. There is also a brief Superman cameo that I felt worked really well here and felt natural in the narrative. It is really short, but it definitely confirms that David Cornsweet is a great Superman that deserves to stay in the DCU. And one of my favorite moments in this entire film is a flashback to the fall of Krypton. It really is tragic, beautifully staged, and effectively sets up why Supergirl is so angry. Seeing the fall of Krypton through Kara's perspective reinforces the emotional baggage she has throughout this film. This is one of the few moments where the visuals and the story come together well. And unfortunately, that's where we need to go into what doesn't work here. And the biggest issue for me right here is the villain, Krem. For a movie that's trying to get us interested in the emotional conflict, the villain is just not strong enough. He's incredibly one-dimensional and is treated as a joke throughout the film, honestly. He reminds me a lot of Ronan from Guardians of the Galaxy if Ronan had no personality and was really, really dumb. And as the saying goes, the hero is only as compelling as the villain that they are fighting. So, it doesn't work here. In addition, visually, I found this film incredibly disappointing. There's a lot of CGI and muddy visuals that you could tell were in front of a green screen. And instead of feeling like really cool and original alien worlds, the locations feel just digital and artificial and kind of ugly to look at. The CGI creatures don't help either, and I was frequently reminded of George Lucas's prequels in a bad way. Then we need to talk about Ruthie. Unfortunately, this character became one of my biggest frustrations when watching this film. I do not think it's the actress's fault. I believe it is the fault of the script and the material that she was given. She's constantly explaining what's happening and trying to give us exposition on why Supergirl needs to help her, and at one point I just didn't care. The film tries to make fun of her in certain scenes, which actually kind of worked in a sense because her character is so stoic and two-dimensional, but that shouldn't be the crux of this character. And that leads into one of this film's biggest weaknesses, which is the writing. Far too often, characters are saying exactly what they're feeling and are being very direct in a way that no one would ever act. I feel like comic book movies can be great if they're not talking down to the audience. Here, the dialogue just feels way too direct and it's lacking any subtext or subtlety. Another issue here is the pacing. The film just feels really boring, like about 75% of it. And there's even a moment at the very end when Kara finally comes into conflict with Krem that I felt like could be a turning point for her character. But instead, she makes a decision that really puts into question her entire arc in this film. I like the main characters to have a change in the film, and in Supergirl doesn't really even get a change. She's the same as she is at the beginning. And then we need to talk about one of the final action scenes here. It is kind of a small thing, but it reinforces how this film needed another pass in the editing room. There's a slow motion action scene where Supergirl's tackling all of these brigands, and there's a song over this fighting that just doesn't really work, and I was just sitting there thinking, did anyone in the editing room question this sound choice? Rather than making the scene feel epic and kind of like cool, it makes you feel just kind of awkward and feel like the film just doesn't know what it's doing. And this feels more like Ruthie's movie than Supergirl's movie, in the sense that Ruthie actually gets an arc, while Supergirl kind of just remains the same. And this makes Kara's journey feel incomplete. So, is James Gunn's second outing in the DCU Supergirl worth seeing? I think this really depends on your expectations and how you feel about Supergirl as a character. I personally did not read the Woman of Tomorrow comic prior to watching this film. I feel like if I did, I would be even more disappointed. However, like I said, Millie does deliver an excellent performance, just with a script that doesn't work. And Jason Momoa steals every single scene that he's in and tries to make this film better. So there are a couple flashes of a great superhero movie in this film, which I think only adds to the disappointment that I feel. But if you're really invested in the DCU that James Gunn's creating, I would say you probably should go watch this, just so then you know what's happening for future installments. I really wish these pieces came together into a stronger film that could have contended against the quality of Superman, but unfortunately it did not. So my caffeinated rating for Supergirl is instant coffee. It's not terrible, it's pretty forgettable. But those are my thoughts on Supergirl. Please let me know what you thought of the film in the comment section down below. Did you find it as good as Superman, or did you find it lacking like I did? Also, feel free to like and subscribe for more reviews coming soon, and I'll continue brewing new reviews for you very soon. I'll see you next time.